Every photograph freezes a single moment forever. But have you ever wondered what actually happens inside a camera when you press the shutter? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we aren't just talking about a piece of everyday consumer electronics. We're exploring an absolute marvel of physics that we literally carry around in our pockets. Just think about what a photograph truly is. It's a literal slice of time, totally immortalized. A laugh caught in midair, a lightning bolt suspended in the sky, a memory preserved long after the moment itself is gone. To pull this off, cameras harness the fastest thing in the known universe. So we're going to shrink down, step straight into the mechanical heart of a camera, and trace the breathtaking, high-speed journey of a single beam of light.
So how do cameras capture images? Honestly, it feels a bit like magic, doesn't it? You point a little plastic rectangle at a scene, hit a button, and boom, reality is instantly duplicated. But to truly wrap our heads around how this works, we need to look at it not as some sterile mechanical process, but as an epic story, a continuous, cinematic journey of a beam of light. Imagine light in the real world as wild and totally chaotic. It travels millions of miles from the sun, crashes through our atmosphere, and then just endlessly bounces and scatters off mountains, trees, and faces in billions of different directions. Our story follows just a tiny specific sliver of that scattered light as it leaves that chaotic outside world, navigates a terrifying gauntlet of precision-engineered obstacles, and finally creates a permanent photograph. Let's dive into it.
Looking at the history, this journey of light is steeped in human ingenuity. In the 19th century, we had the camera obscura. Then in 1888, the first Kodak roll film camera arrived. Skip to 1975, and we get the first digital camera. And now in the 21st century, we all have smartphone cameras. It's an incredible evolution. Back with the camera obscura, which translates to dark room, pioneers let light through a tiny pinhole into a light-proof tent to project the outside world upside down for artists to trace. The 1888 Kodak made that dark room portable. And that 1975 digital camera, an engineer named Stephen Sawson built it. It was the size of a toaster, weighed 8 pounds, and took a grueling 23 seconds to record just one black and white 0.01 megapixel image onto a cassette tape. But here is the absolute most crucial takeaway. Whether you're using a wooden box from the 1800s, an experimental toaster, or your incredibly sleek smartphone, the underlying physics of how that light behaves hasn't really changed at all.
To really start our story, we have to understand the environment our beam of light is entering. By definition, a camera is an enclosed dark box, where light enters through a converging or convex lens to record an image on a light-sensitive medium. At its core, it's just an absolute void. It's sealed off completely from the outside world, waiting in pitch black for a signal. Out of the trillions of photons wildly bouncing off a subject, scattering everywhere, only a highly specific, tiny fraction happen to align perfectly to travel right toward the front of this dark box. The camera is just waiting for that exact fraction of light. And the very moment those rays cross the threshold, that's when our micronarrative truly takes off.
The journey begins bending light. Our light ray makes its very first contact, slamming into a piece of high-quality, precision-engineered optical glass at the very front of the lens assembly. Now, modern lenses aren't just one simple piece of glass. They're actually complex arrays of multiple optical elements, all beautifully arranged to tame this wild light. These pieces of glass are perfectly shaped to grab those scattered, chaotic rays and violently force them to change direction. The journey isn't random anymore. The light has been captured, and now it's being actively guided.
A convex lens is basically a curved piece of glass that bends and focuses incoming light rays, acting like a funnel to converge them into a clear image. Notice how it bows outward in the middle, thicker at the center than at the edges. Now, instead of bogging down in complex textbook math about refraction, just think of a convex lens like a physical funnel for light. If you pour a wide bucket of splashing, chaotic water into a funnel, it neatly directs all that liquid into one precise, concentrated stream, right? The convex lens does exactly that. It grabs the wide, scattered field of incoming light rays and bends them inward, funneling them so they converge toward a single, sharp focal point much deeper inside the camera body. Without this funneling, the light would just hit the back of the camera as a blurry, unrecognizable wash of white.
Finding perfect focus. Because you see, simply getting the light into the funnel isn't quite enough. It has to be perfectly aligned. Distance really matters here. If the light converges a little too early or a little too late, your final image is still going to be a blurry mess. So how do we fix this? Well, by physically moving heavy blocks of glass. When you twist the focus ring on a big professional camera, or when your smartphone's autofocus magically kicks in, it's actually physically sliding these glass lens elements closer to or further away from the sensor.
You know that tiny rapid vibration you sometimes feel in your phone when it's struggling to focus up close? That is literally a microscopic motor hauling tiny glass blocks back and forth to find the perfect mathematical convergence. It makes these microscopic adjustments until the funnel of light converges sharply and perfectly onto your subject. Controlling the flow, the aperture. Okay, so our perfectly focused beam of light is now rushing deeper into the camera barrel, gaining intensity, but bam, it immediately hits its first physical obstacle, the aperture. You can think of the aperture as a mechanical valve that controls exactly how much light is allowed to flow further into the dark void of the box. And it is a highly sensitive balancing act. Let way too much light pour in and the final image is completely washed out, destroyed in a sea of blinding white, but let too little light through and the image plunges into pitch black, and you lose all that beautiful detail you were trying to capture in the first place.
The camera aperture uses overlapping plates that expand and contract in f-stops to regulate incoming light, while the human pupil dilates and constricts to regulate light entering the human eye. This is honestly one of my absolute favorite comparisons in all of technology, how the camera's mechanics so brilliantly mimic human biology. The aperture is made of a series of overlapping mechanical blades that physically expand and contract. They move in specific mathematical increments we call f-stops, which are just fractions that exactly double or half the amount of light. It works exactly like your pupil. Think about it. When you walk from a bright sunny day into a dark movie theater, what happens? Your pupil dilates. It opens up wide to let in as much light as possible so you can see. The camera aperture does the exact same thing. In a dim room, the blades open wide. On a bright, snowy beach, they close down to a tiny, restrictive pinhole. It's constantly adapting, mimicking evolutionary biology to manage that flow of light. The gatekeeper of time, the shutter. So, let's recap. The light's been funneled by the lens, focused perfectly by moving glass, and its volume has been regulated by the biological mimicry of the aperture. It is now speeding toward the absolute back of the camera, completely ready to create an image. But suddenly, it hits a wall, the final physical barrier. This is the shutter mechanism, and it acts as the ultimate gatekeeper of time. You see, the shutter decides not how much light enters, but exactly how long the light is allowed to stay. Most modern cameras use a focal plane shutter, which consists of metal plates or cloth curtains that rapidly pass across the light-sensitive surface to control exposure duration. These things are incredibly fast and incredibly delicate, sitting right in front of the back wall of the camera. Normally, they are closed tight, keeping that innermost sanctum perfectly pitch dark. But when you press the button to take a picture, snap. The metal plates rapidly slide out of the way, exposing the back of the camera to the incoming light. If you're trying to capture something moving super fast, like a cheetah sprinting or a sports car flying by, this shutter opens and closes in an impossibly small fraction of a second. To eliminate motion blur and freeze that action perfectly, these delicate metal blades move with such violent speed that they undergo immense g-forces, snapping open and shut before your brain can even register the sound. The final destination. The gatekeeper has finally opened the door. The beam of light breaches the shutter and rushes into the innermost sanctum of the camera, striking the back wall. This right here is the absolute climax of our journey. Waiting in the pitch black is a highly sensitive medium, and the exact moment the light strikes it, the image is born. Now, photographic film means light strikes a chemically sensitive strip that must be manually advanced, whereas a digital sensor means light hits an electronic chip that converts light into digital data. How the image is recorded really just depends on the era of the camera. In the romantic days of analog photography, the light hit film, a delicate strip coated in light-sensitive chemicals. The incoming photons would literally burn a chemical reaction into the film, permanently altering its physical structure to create a negative that you then had to manually wind forward for the next shot. But today, the light strikes a digital sensor, and this is where the magic of modern engineering truly shines. A highly advanced electronic canvas, usually made of silicon chips like CMOS or CCD, takes physical light, actual photons flying through the air, and translates them instantly into pure digital math, zeros and ones. Digital sensor pixels are microscopic photosites that act as tiny buckets, catching incoming photons of light and converting them into electrical charges. Let's zoom in even closer here, right down to the microscopic level. The surface of this digital sensor is divided into millions of tiny squares called pixels. I want you to imagine these pixels as millions of microscopic buckets. When the shutter opens, the light rays rain down, and these tiny buckets catch the incoming photons. The more photons a bucket catches, the stronger the electrical charge it generates. But here is a fascinating secret. On their own, these highly advanced sensors are actually completely colorblind. Yeah, these tiny buckets only measure the amount of light, the brightness and darkness, not the color itself.
To see the beautiful hues of the world, cameras use a microscopic grid called a Bayer filter placed right over the buckets. It assigns a tiny red, green, or blue filter to each individual bucket. The camera's computer then looks at the electrical charges from the red, green, and blue buckets and instantly calculates the true, vibrant colors of the scene you just shot.
Millions. The sheer scale of this operation is honestly staggering to comprehend. When you take a standard smartphone photo, you are exposing anywhere from 12 million to 50 million of these tiny buckets to the raining light at the exact same time. The computational power required for this is immense. A tiny processor inside your phone has to take the electrical signals from all 50 million of those individual pixels, run complex computational algorithms, check the exact mix of red, green, and blue values for every single microscopic bucket, and perfectly balance the light, shadow, and color. It literally paints your final high-resolution photograph before you even have time to lower your hand.
The journey is complete. The crucial point here is that the light has made it. Just think about what this beam of light survived. The chaotic light from the outside world was captured and funneled by a convex lens. It was physically pushed into perfect focus by microscopic motors. It was squeezed and regulated by the biological mimicry of those mechanical aperture blades. It was sliced in time by the violent, high-speed metal curtains of the shutter. And finally, it rained down as physical photons into millions of microscopic buckets on a digital sensor, where it was instantly converted into math and then into the beautiful digital photograph you see on your screen. 1/1000th. But here is the ultimate climactic twist of this entire explainer. We just spent all this time tracing this epic, highly mechanical, deeply computational journey of light. We talked about shifting glass, expanding metal blades, swinging shutter curtains, and 50 million microscopic data conversions. But in reality, when you take a picture on a bright sunny day, this entire journey from the front of the lens to the final digital file often happens in just 1/1000th of a second. In the literal blink of an eye, an entire universe of advanced physics and breathtaking engineering executes flawlessly. A fraction of a second to freeze a single moment forever. What will you capture next? The next time you pull out your phone or lift a camera to your eye, I really hope you take a brief second to marvel at the incredible voyage of light happening right under your fingertips. It is the physics of the universe, perfectly choreographed inside a tiny dark box. The only question remaining is, what will you capture next?